Hi there, and welcome to the third episode of the Cait Cast On podcast. My name is Caitlin, and I'm a knitter, spinner, sewist, and sometimes quilter based out of the Pacific Northwest. This is a little series I'm doing where I'm talking all about the things I'm making. Today I have some really exciting updates to share, including a few finished objects and some really good progress on a couple sweaters I'm working on, so I'm excited to share it with you. Grab your craft of choice, settle in, and let's get started. I can't believe I am already recording my third podcast episode. If this is the first video you're tuning into or you've been around for a few, I just wanted to take a second to say thank you so much. I really appreciate every single one of you that are here. And honestly, this channel has grown a bit faster than what I expected. I tried not to have too many expectations coming in, but I've been really pleased to see how many of you are tuning in, liking and commenting, and just building a little community over here on my channel. Thank you so much. Like I said in the intro, I have some exciting updates to share today. I have some finished objects and some really good progress on some of the things I've talked about in previous episodes, a new cast on, lots of good stuff to get into. But before we dive in, I figured I would quickly go over what I'm wearing. What I am wearing today is the Book Club cardigan by Sari Nordland. It's this really beautiful, all over cabled textured sweater. And this is actually the second one that I made. This is done in Cascade 220 Superwash in this really lovely burgundy color. I forget the exact yarn name, but it's definitely in my Ravelry project if you're curious and want to know the specific one. Maybe it's like burgundy heather or something like that, but it has some very subtle heathering in the yarn. It's not like a super solid color. But yeah, this is the second Book Club cardigan that I made last fall, and I love both my versions. I actually talked about them in my latest video, all about my favorite fall and winter knits. So if you want to hear a little bit more about my experience with the Book Club, and specifically this one, that is covered in that video there. But now let's go ahead and dive right into finished objects. The first one I have to share with you is a finished pair of socks. These were a work in progress in the last episode. I had one done and had just started the second. But these are just a really nice pair of DK weight 2x2 rib socks. And I knit these up in Coast to Coast Classic sock in the color Frosty Flakes. I just kind of free-handed these guys. Based on a pair of socks that I made for my husband a few years ago. He really loves wearing his in the winter months, so I figured it was time for me to have a pair as well. But I did, let's just pull one sock. I did an Italian cast on and then rearranged my stitches to form a 2x2 rib instead of 1x1, and then just kind of kept going. I continued the 2x2 rib through the heel flap, and then did stockinette on the bottom of the foot and kept the 2x2 rib on top. So they're just like a nice, cute little pair of socks. Very squishy, very cozy, and I think they'll be really nice for winter. I did hold the yarn double, and I think it just gives this really nice watercolory effect. It just blends a variegated yarn really nicely when you hold it double. So I'm quite pleased with these, and they were just like a nice little side project that I had going on with all of my other bigger works in progress. It was kind of a breath of fresh air to work on those. The other finished object that I have to share with you today is a ruby vest, which is a sewing pattern by Syd Graham. This is a quilted and reversible vest design. I went ahead and did the V-neck version. There's like a crew neck and a V-neck. And then I did the shorter version, kind of cropped. And then I have, obviously, ties. There's also an option for buttons. So I did the single tie, V-neck, cropped version. And I sewed this up using two fabrics from Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. The first one is this blue, and this is their light non-stretch 6.5 ounce denim. And then the inside, I was able to use some scrap fabric that I had left over from my Carl shirt that I sewed this last summer, which I was very excited about. I did not think I was going to have enough left over, but I did with some creative finagling of the fabric. But this is Matchy Matchy Sewing Club's Big Market Striped Cotton in the color Mint Green. which is very, very cute. Like I said, this is fully reversible, so I can actually, you know, fully flip it inside out, undo the tie, and fully flip it. So that's quite nice. And it still has like that denim binding. So it still has a pop of blue when I wear it this way. I went ahead and did a diamond quilt pattern on top, which I thought suited like the plain fabric quite well. It added some interest, but it also, I think that way I wasn't competing with any of the vertical lines on the inside. I just thought the diamond was quite nice. And then I used kind of a cream colored thread for the quilting, which has a nice little contrast on the front, but doesn't compete with the busyness of this guy either. So that's kind of why I made that decision. This was quite a fun project to make. It had a lot of new things for me. I had never quilted on my machine before. I've only ever hand quilted. So that was pretty fun. I went out and bought a walking foot for my machine, which was absolutely necessary. I don't think I could have done this project without a walking foot. But once I got that, it was kind of a breeze for the most part. The one downside to this sewing pattern is that you can't really try on the pieces until they're quilted. Because you don't connect certain parts of it until it's quilted. So for me, unfortunately, when I quilted this all up and tried it on, I felt like there was just way too much bulk fabric underneath the arm. I probably just picked the wrong size for what I was looking for. I just went with my bust measurement and did what she recommended, but I guess I just preferred a little bit less ease than she wrote the pattern for. So that was unfortunate. I kind of hemmed and hawed over whether I wanted to do anything about it or if I just wanted to move forward, but ultimately I did decide to cut up the side seam of my vest on both sides, and I took out about 2 inches of fabric on each side, so 4 inches total. And yeah, I made that decision. So I ended up needing to do some cover work that isn't in the pattern. Typically, like this quilt line should be seamless underneath the arm, like the lines would connect. And yes, there'd be like one seam line here on the inside and outside, but like the quilt would be continuous. But because I cut into it after, obviously I broke up the quilting lines and I needed to do kind of a bias binding cover on the inside, which is definitely not my preferred look, but to get the fit that made the most sense for me, it's absolutely worth it. I don't want to give away too many pattern details, but essentially if you have the pattern, I used the same method how I did this. The side seam, I used the same method that is used for the shoulder seams already in the pattern. So there was definitely instructions that made it easy for me to figure out how I wanted to alter this once it was quilted, but I just kind of had to figure out some stuff on my own in terms of how much fabric I wanted, what was the best way to go about it. But that kind of bias seam covering was already in the pattern. So I was able to kind of follow that same method, which was nice. I think if it wasn't in there, I probably would have felt a little bit more intimidated that, you know, am I doing this in the best possible way? I'm not sure, but I am very glad that I went ahead and took out that extra bulk under the arms. I think when I added the binding on top of the armholes, it kind of exaggerated that feeling of bulk again after I'd already taken out quite a bit of width, obviously. So I'm really glad that I did go ahead and take that out because I think it would have just felt even worse if I did the binding on top of already having so much fabric underneath. So I'm glad I did it. I think that, you know, it was kind of the best possible outcome considering I did not have enough fabric to do this a second time in these fabrics, which I really wanted to do. So I just kind of made the best of the situation and moved forward how I knew best to do. So I'm proud of myself for that. And I think that it paid off. I'm quite happy with the fit of this now. And I think next time I make it, I will definitely just go ahead and make those modifications to the pattern pieces so that I don't have to worry about cutting open things that have already been sewn closed. I think truly that this was just a personal preference thing. I have sewed so many of Syd Graham's patterns and have never had any issues with the grading or anything like that. So I think it was probably just my personal preference and I didn't really realize it because I truly don't have anything like this in my closet. So I really had nothing to base off how I wanted it to fit and how much ease I wanted to have. So This is a project that is done. It was one that I wanted to do and talked about in my fall making plans video, so I'm very excited to have this checked off and to wear it a little bit more this season. And I also think that this green striped fabric also lends itself quite well to like spring and summer as well. And the denim does too. I think they are both quite versatile year round. So I think I will get a lot of wear out of this. And yeah, if I make it again, I'll just make those few modifications to the pattern pieces and it'll be smooth sailing from there. Those are all the finished objects that I have to share today. So now let's go ahead and get into works in progress. I have some very exciting progress to share with you today in some of the things I've talked about in previous episodes, and also a new cast on and a new spin. The cast on was quite spontaneous, so I'm excited to talk about it. But first, let's go ahead and get into my Recursion sweater. This is what it's looking like at this point. This is a pattern by Indigo Knits, and I am knitting this up using Cascade Heritage in the color Limestone. That's the light color. And then the darker color is Treehouse Knits Sequoia Fingering in the color Edges of Your Soul, which was part of their Season of the Stitch collection that they did a few years ago. I am so pleased with how this turned out, but it was quite a journey to get to this point. If you remember from the last podcast episode, my gauge swatch was quite off. I ended up sizing up 2 needle sizes and was still technically under gauge, but just decided to move forward and hope for the best. Hope that because this is all superwash yarn, it would grow a little bit. And, you know, I had good reason to believe that. It would be bigger than my swatch was. And unfortunately, it was way too big. I don't know what happened. I've never had a gauge swatch be so off before, but I probably got maybe like 3/4 of the way through the color work knitting this up on US 5 needles. And it was huge. It was like already what should have been 4x4 inches was 5x5. So that was a huge, huge bummer. I knew that that was not going to work. It was just going to cause a lot of problems in the fit. And so I ended up frogging the entire thing, which was so sad. And then I ended up starting again on the recommended needle size, which was US 3 or 3.25 millimeter. And it was absolutely the right decision. I don't know why my gauge swatch was so tight. It doesn't make sense to me. I gauge swatched so many times and it was just consistently very tight. So I guess I must have been tense that day or something. But yeah, the actual sweater gauge was way off from where my swatch was. So ripping back and starting over was definitely the right decision. But honestly, I was not thrilled about that. It was so sad having to rip it out and start over. And honestly, I was pretty over doing color work at that point. Like I was ready to be where I was in the first time around, which was basically right in this last little motif here. But I knew that this sweater was important to me and I wanted to make it fit right. So I ripped back, cast it on again immediately, didn't let myself wait or feel too hurt about it. I knew that I just needed to get going. So I went ahead and did that. And now I am at a point where I am done with the color work finally, which is really exciting. I did do a mid-project block on this and I am pretty close to gauge. I think it's a little bit longer than gauge intended, but I'm not worried about it. I tried it on and I feel like it fits fine in the yoke. So, yeah, I'm good with it. I'm going to keep moving forward. I have a couple more inches to do on the body before I get into ribbing, and then just have to do the sleeves and this will be a finished object. So I think it's going to come together pretty fast now that the color work is done and that I don't have to rip it out and start over again. There's no way I'll need to do it again. So I'm relieved that that's over with, that I can just do some nice stockinette in the round and have a little bit of a break from all the color work and just be in the clear on the sweater. I'm really pleased with how the colors look and how it blocked out. It just turned out really, really nice and exactly how I was hoping that it would. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with this. This was I'm sure a large part of it was that I had to knit the colorwork motif twice, but yeah, I was kind of over it by the time I got to the end of it for sure. I think because this is such an abstract design, it's really hard to feel like you're making progress. Like I have done Fair Isle projects or other colorwork projects where like as you go, like certain shapes finish and you can kind of see like a section come to life. And this one, because it's so abstract, it's just all swirly whirlies. It's like hard to tell what kind of progress you're making and hard to tell if you're finishing shapes because they just kind of keep swirling and feeding into each other. So that made it a little less motivating to keep going and to keep making progress on it. But I'm happy with how it looks now that it's done. It was kind of, I had to kind of force myself to keep going, which again, I'm sure part of that was I knit it twice, which was my own fault. So yeah, I'm relieved it's over. I'm excited to have this in my closet. I think it's beautiful. I love the colors. They feel so fall-like to me. And yeah, it's pretty much going to be really smooth sailing here now that I am just doing stockinette in the round for the body and the sleeves. So yeah, I'm quite excited to have that where it is, and I just feel like it's at a breathing point now. The next work in progress that I have to share with you today is one that you'll be familiar with if you've seen previous episodes of the podcast, but it looks a little bit different now. This is my Vita cardigan, which is a pattern by Susan Crawford inside her book Echoes. And yeah, it looks a little bit different than the last time I shared this, which is quite exciting. I've made some good progress. This is knit up on US 3 or 3.25 millimeter needles using a fingering weight yarn. It's knit from the bottom up and has steeks in it. So it has a center steek for the cardigan opening and then 2 sleeve steeks that need to be cut open. And I am knitting this up using Knitting for Olive Merino in 7 different colors. The main color I'm using is Blue Whale, and then I'm also using Oatmeal, Navy, Claret, Dark Moose, Dusty Dove Blue, and Plum Rose. And yeah, it's coming together so nicely. This looks quite a bit different than the last podcast episode. Last time, I just had made some progress on this first sleeve, and actually this sleeve has not changed since last time, but a lot of other things have. So last time the center steek was still closed up. I cut that open and knit this button band here, which turned out really nice. It's a beautiful seed stitch design. And then I added these wooden buttons as well. And then I also cut open the second sleeve steek and started working on that. And that's making good progress as well. It's just a trend this episode. I had to redo quite a bit on this. So I cut open the center steek, I knit the whole button band to pattern specifications and bound off, sewed on my buttons. And I did not like the proportion of the button band width to the buttons. In the pattern, she doesn't give like a specific button size. So I just found ones that I thought looked pretty, would suit it well. And they didn't look too different from the pattern images, but I did have to adjust. Like I had to make my buttonhole 1 stitch bigger than what was in the pattern. So I knew mine were a little bit bigger than hers. But I didn't think it was that drastic. But yeah, as described in the pattern, the button band was just too skinny. It was basically the same exact width as the buttons, not any larger. And so when you buttoned it, it just like had some weird tension on it and just didn't look as clean and polished as I would like. So I ended up cutting into my cast off edge and picking up those stitches and then knitting. Actually, I had to rip back before I did any buttonholes. So I had to rip back quite close to the beginning and then knit up again. And I ended up adding 5 rows to the width of this. It was like, I think it was 2 rows before the buttonhole and then 3 rows after is what I added in addition to what's stated in the pattern. But it definitely paid off. This looks so much better, so much cleaner. And I'm happy that I went back and did those changes. But yeah, between this, the alterations that I had to make to my Ruby, and then also having to totally reknit my Recursion color work, Oh, it was a lot of going back and fixing these last few weeks. That's basically been the theme of everything. So I'm quite relieved that all of them, like the alterations, paid off and they're done and I can just keep going. But yeah, now that the center cardigan is there and I can like fully try this on, I'll try and include a little picture of me trying it on. It just, oh my gosh, it feels such a relief. It's so nice. I feel like so much more progress has been made on it. And yeah, it's really, really exciting. This feels like, oh, I could finish this in the next few days if I wanted to, which is kind of crazy because, if you didn't catch the last few episodes, I cast this on in January. This has been something that has been on my needles for quite some time. It hibernated over the summer, but still, it's been quite a work in progress for so many months. So to have it so close to the finish line now is pretty crazy. My goal is to have it done for the next podcast episode. So in the next few weeks, I should be able to fully be done with this, which feels like a huge weight off my shoulders. I think I really wanted to be ready for this. I really wanted to challenge myself and try it and do it. And then it felt good for a while all through the body. And then when I picked up the sleeves, there was just some rough patches and I kind of questioned if this was something that I wanted to do or was able to do. But just with a little patience and perseverance, it's totally come together. I did do a mid-project block before I cut open the center steek. And if you remember, I was kind of concerned about some weird bulging and texture happening in the underarm where you're decreasing and transitioning color and blocking it. It's not an issue at all. I was genuinely really concerned about that. And it's barely there. So that is a huge, huge relief. And yeah, I think that this is going to be an heirloom piece for sure. It's going to be one that I never let go of. And it's just kind of my Mount Everest. I'm so proud of it. I'm so close to being done. And I'm so excited to wear it this winter and fall. I think this is like really the only kind of sweater that I have like this. And I would love to knit other Fair Isle sweaters in the future. But for now, I think this will probably be my only one for a year or so. So I am just really, really excited and proud of myself and happy with the progress that's been made. And yeah, when I think back to me a year ago, when I hadn't cast this on yet, I just think I've grown so much as a knitter, in my understanding of construction, in my understanding of tension and color work and my skills there, but also just in my confidence in myself. Because honestly, I could have done this a year ago. There's no reason why I couldn't have. It was just my doubt in myself. So, yeah, my problem solving, all of that, I just think has been reinforced. Those skills, like I do have them, and it's just been a boost. So I'm so excited with all progress that's made here, and hopefully the next time you see it, it will be a finished object. The last knitting work in progress that I have to share with you today was a spontaneous cast on that I literally just cast on this morning. And it is the beginnings of a Jaunty shawl, which is a new pattern by Drea Renee Knits, or Andrea Mowry. And I am using some hand spun for this. I've had this skein in stash for quite some time. I think this was the second one I've ever spun. But this is Mosaic Moon fiber. I forget what she calls this base, but it's BFL and silk. I do remember that. And this is the color Sirius, I think. Sirius. And I did a worsted spun 3-ply of just one single braid. And I ended up getting, this was the second yarn I spun, so it's kind of inconsistent, but I think it kind of varies between a DK to maybe an Aran in some places, but I think on average it's worsted. But yeah, I decided that this would be a really good yarn for this shawl project. If you haven't heard of the Jaunty shawl, this is brand new, and it is a half fisherman's rib design. That's the back side, actually. This is the right side. It's a half fisherman's rib design, and the way that Andrea Mowry kind of designed it was specifically, like, it's a really great project for hand spun because there isn't one specific gauge you need to hit. There isn't you know, a specific amount of skeins that you need to use. Basically, you just do this nice, simple 8-row repeat until you hit about halfway through your ball of yarn, and then you just start decreasing. So it's just like a really nice project for those like skeins of yarn that you have, or in my case, I have quite a few that I've spun that I'm just not quite sure what to do with. And it'll just make this really nice shawl. I'll try and include a picture of the pattern if I haven't already, so that you can see what it actually looks like in full. But yeah, I'm very excited with this. This was a yarn that I wasn't sure I was ever going to be able to use. It was a single skein. It was kind of worsted weight. I wasn't sure. But this is just such a fun project. I'm not sure if I will keep this for myself or for my husband, or if this will end up in a pile of Christmas gifts this year. I figure we'll just play it by ear. We do a holiday party with my extended family every year, and we kind of do a gift exchange there. It's not like a specific kind of gift exchange. Basically, there's a pile of gifts. Everyone brings one, and then we draw for who gets to pick out of the pile first and take home whatever gift. So this could be an option for that. Or maybe I will keep it for myself, or maybe my husband will want it, or, you know, somebody like that. But this has just been a nice, fun project and a little bit of a respite from my color work because I have had my Recursion sweater blocking once I finished the yoke. So that has been kind of damp. And then my Vita, has been just a lot of color work. So this was a nice break, and these color transitions are just naturally happening in the yarn. So it's really interesting to see kind of how it's going to come to life and how the colors are going to change and fade over time. I do think that it would be quite fun to do more of these jaunty shawls in the future. I have some other skeins that I'm not sure what to do with that I have hand spun. They're just probably thicker yarn than I would typically use. And I had a project in mind for these two specifically, and then it just like didn't pan out. It ended up blooming quite a bit and becoming quite a bit thicker than I wanted. But I have this really lovely wool 2-ply that I did. There's a lot of fibers going in here. There's more than one braid, and I don't totally remember all of them. But I know that the purple variations are all wool of some kind. And then like the blue and like the lighter pinks and stuff, that is leftovers of a braid that I had that is like silk, wool, and I want to say it had some mint fiber in it as well. And that blue that's in there is actually the same as what's in this one. I was trying to do a fade, and there was a couple other skeins in between these. Obviously, these are quite different. But that ended up not working out. And so I think both of these would be really nice jaunty shawls. This one starts with this white color, and then it kind of fades to pink and to blue and to green, and has a lot of different colors. So I think that in a jaunty shawl like this, that would just be very fun to see that fade kind of come out. This one as well, I don't totally remember all the fibers that are in here. I know that there was a Hedgehog Fibers like mystery pack in here. That's a lot of them. There's the blue that was the wool, silk, and mint. And then the white, I think, was just like some plain white top that I had. I remember that one is just like wool. There's no specific breed or anything that it's tied to. So yeah, I think that these would make really good jaunty shawls, and I'm really excited to have that pattern in my library and as an option to use up some of these hand spun skeins that I have. Then the very last work in progress that I have to share is a spin that I'm working on. And this is one that I talked about in my fall knitting plans as well. But I have most of my first ply done here. I'm going to be doing a combo spin with 2 braids of Wee Chickadee fiber. This is the first. And this is the color Backroads on 100% Corriedale by Wee Chickadee. And it's just lovely. This is kind of what it looks like in a fiber nest. So it's mainly blue, but it has like these little pops of warmth that are quite nice. And I think I only have 2 more of these little nests to go. It's been quite quick. I'm trying to get a DK weight spin with 2 plies. So spinning thicker, it goes quite a bit faster. But yeah, it's just coming together really nicely. And then I'm going to be plying this with another braid of Wee Chickadee. This one is the color On the Road, which is a one-of-a-kind colorway. And this is on 100% Jacob wool, which I just thought this was lovely. But I think combined, it's going to be quite nice because they do have some similar tones, but this one is more cool toned and this one has more warmth in it, specifically in like these rusty coppery colors over here. So I think applied together, they'll just be really, really nice. My hope is that when I get the finished yarn, I'll be able to use it as stripes in some kind of striped sweater that I knit up next year. And I think that this will just make such a lovely yarn, and I'm excited to have a sweater with it knit. I actually haven't spun Jacob wool before, so that will be an interesting experience. Based on like how it feels, I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar to a Corriedale, maybe a little bit more rustic. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if the staple lengths are maybe slightly longer, but it doesn't feel drastically different, so I think it'll be a good experience. And yeah, I'm excited to see how it comes together and how it plies together. And yeah, use up these really beautiful braids that I've had in my stash for a little while. So now let's go ahead and get into purchases and plans. I have some very exciting things to share because my Coast to Coast Book Tropes pre-order finally got delivered, and I have lots of really beautiful yarn to share. So the first one that I got is a sweater quantity of this really lovely Shanico tweed fingering in the color Button. Oh, it's so lovely. I love the color. I love the tweed. It's so squishy and soft. The Shanico is really, really nice. I'm so excited to knit with it. But this is going to be for a Louvre sweater, which is a pattern by Petite Knit. And I'm going to hold the yarn double in order to meet gauge. So I got a sweater quantity's worth of this. This is actually what this yarn looks like caked up. Just nice cream tweed. And then I actually went ahead and swatched for the Louvre sweater as well because I couldn't resist. And it's just so lovely. I'm so excited. And I actually hit gauge like bang on. So I can just go ahead and cast on and just get going on this in a few weeks, which I'm very excited about. So like I said, I'm going to be holding this yarn double. And I did like kind of wonder when I was placing my order if maybe I should get if I should hold one strand of the tweed fingering with one strand of regular like non-tweed. Like maybe if I held the tweed double, it would be too tweedy for me. But I think this is really nice. I'm happy with the decision. I ultimately decided to just hold 2 strands of tweed double because I figured I can always like pick out some of the neps if I feel like there's too many. You can't add, but you can take some out. And then also it allowed me to order 1 skein less because I needed an odd number, but I'm holding it double. So I would have had to order an additional skein to hold it double. With a different kind of base. So that's kind of why I did the tweed double, but I think it turned out really well. I think it will be so nice and not too tweedy at all. So I'm very, very excited. This is going to be my next cast on. It's taking everything in me to not cast it on right now, but I do want to finish my Vita first and make some good progress on my Recursion before I cast anything else on. But oh, it's so lovely. This feels so good knit up, and I cannot wait for this to be a Louvre sweater. I've been looking for the right yarn for a Louvre, my second one, and kind of took a risk on this. Definitely invested a little bit more than what I was hoping to. I was hoping that I would be able to find a commercial yarn that's a little bit more affordable for this project, but I've been looking for years and just never really found one that felt right. So yeah, I invested in this. It was kind of a commitment. I'm so pleased with it. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I'm confident in knowing that I did my research. Like I looked for other options. I waited. It was not a rash decision. But this is just going to be such a lovely sweater and one that I know I will wear for decades. So yeah, I cannot wait. It's so, so exciting. The other yarn that I got from Coast to Coast was a few skeins, not quite a sweater quantity, but a few skeins of this, which is Shanico fingering in the color Red Herring from the Book Tropes collection. It's this really lovely green. I don't know totally how to describe it. It's not quite mint green. It's not quite Kelly green. Maybe it's like a kind of spearminty. It's such a unique green, but I'm going to be pairing it with Fiber MacGyver Shanico fingering in the color Pearl for an Olga sweater by Petite Knit, which I'm very, very excited about. I'm going to be holding both of these double to meet gauge. It was just kind of the best option available. There wasn't a Shanico DK weight, and I preferred the way this color looked on the non-superwash on the Shanico. It's just a little bit softer than it looks on the superwash merino. So that was kind of my preference. I knew I wanted this base, so holding it double made sense. And based on how this gauge swatch behaved, I think I'm going to hit gauge perfectly by holding these doubles. So I think it'll be a really good fit. And even though these are from two different dyers, I am 99.9% certain that they are the exact same base. They're the same fiber content, same yardage, and they feel like the same. And Shanico, just like I don't think there's very many Shanico bases out there. So with them being the exact same yardage, I'm very certain that these are the exact same base. So I think they'll pair together really well. I don't think I'll have any gauge issues there. And I think that they'll make a really lovely Olga sweater. I was kind of inspired by this fabric that I used on this ruby vest and in my Carl shirt. I have in my Carl shirt a summer garment in these colors, and I was hoping that this yarn would be kind of a cold weather color palette, and it really is. It's kind of hard to tell, when you order online, but these colors are so similar to what's in this fabric, so I think truly it will be just like a really nice cold weather version of that color palette. And I think I will really love wearing it because I love that fabric. I love how it feels. I love how I look in it. I love the colors in it. So I'm quite excited to have a sweater in those colors too. The last yarn acquisition I have is a sweater quantity of some Knitting for Olive merino. This was kind of a panic purchase because I don't know if you've heard, but Knitting for Olive stopped shipping to the US there for a couple weeks. And thankfully they're back now, but I got a little nervous and I wanted to make sure that I got at least one more sweater quantity of Knitting for Olive so that mentally I could just say, okay, this might be it. But like I'm prepared for that now because this is truly one of my favorite yarns. I'm so glad that they're back to operations as normal. But I did go ahead and place an order for this just in case. I bought this from La Mercerie, which is a yarn shop on Bainbridge Island in Washington. And these are going to be paired together in a nice subtle marl. This one right here is the color pomegranate, and this is robin. And I think when I hold them up close, they're coming across a little bit more orange. So let me try and grab some other colors to kind of balance out the color grading and see if, yeah, that's more accurate. This is more of like a fire engine red. It does lean a little bit orange, but like it's not quite as orange as what it was showing there. And then this is kind of more of a dusty terracotta kind of orange. It's really subtle and nice. So I think that they will pair really well together. I was thinking about using these for my next Cove sweater, which is a pattern by the Knit Pearl Girl. I just finished one. I love it. And I knit it up in other colors of Knitting for Olive merino. But yeah, I would love to make another version in some other colors. But I also started thinking about the Lakes pullover by Ozetta. I have one of those as well, and I think that this would be really cute as a Lakes pullover. So we'll see. I don't think this will be something I work on until December, January, February. So I have some time to decide. I think it would work for both. And now that this is readily available again, there's no rush. There's like, I can do both. So yeah, we'll see what this specific combo ends up being, but I am quite excited about that. Just a quick heads up, I have had more yarn acquisition in the last 3 episodes than is normal. Typically I only buy maybe 1 or 2 projects in advance. Most of my stash is made up of those like next project skeins, a couple fingering weight skeins for like sock or accessory projects, and then just leftovers from past projects. So it is quite odd for me to have this much yarn on my shelf. I'm not mad about it. It's great. I love looking at it, and I know that I'm going to get to all of it. They all have very specific projects that I want to work on. But I just did want to know, I do think this is probably going to be my last yarn purchases for the year. I am going to be buying some fiber. I do know that, just probably couple more braids for a specific project that I have in mind, but I think this is probably it for yarn. And yeah, I just wanted to note, like, this is kind of odd. This is a really weird season of my life, I feel like, that really hasn't happened before. So that if this is not the norm, and it will probably change in future episodes, but just kind of wanted to note that. So that is all I have to share today. Thank you so much if you have made it this far. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, your participation helps other people find this video, which helps my channel grow. And like I said, it's grown a little bit faster than what I was expecting. So thank you so much for being here. I truly appreciate it. I hope you've made a lot of progress on whatever project you're working on during this time and just had a nice time chatting with me. You can always come over and say hi on Instagram. My username is CaitCassOn. And then also you can find me on Ravelry. I've left links to both the Instagram and Ravelry below in the description if you're interested. I hope you have a really wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.